At least one person has been killed in the Orkney area in Northwest Province. This after the 5.3 magnitude quake ER24 says the person was killed when a wall collapsed. Now, the earthquake occurred at the depth of 10 kilometers. There are reports that miners are being brought to the surface and some mines have ceased operations. To speak to us about the tremor, we are now joined in studio by Dr. Musa Manzi, a geophysicist at Wits University. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us on PM News and welcome.
That's good to be here.
Now, Doctor, please explain to us, what is a tremor? What is an earthquake?
So basically, to differentiate between the two, one has to know the source because Earth is moving and you've got geological structures that move at the Earth's crust. So what happens is, usually if you've got the human-induced event that will qualify as a tremor, and what is with the earthquake, you've got huge movements in tectonic boundaries that confine a country, whatever. So if that big movements happen, that will qualify as an earthquake. So it also depends on where actually the movements happen because, for example, in South Africa, we host the deepest gold mines in the world. And that's on its own. If it happens in Klerksdorp or in Orkney, that will probably qualify as a tremor because we've got the deepest gold mines there.
Absolutely, and that's what I wanted to ask, Doctor, that this tremor has caused more havoc in the mining areas of Orkney and Klerksdorp. Does this have anything to do with the mining taking place in that area?
It's hard to tell without having done detailed analysis on the data. There's stations all around the country. Council for Geosciences are recording that. One has to look at each and every station and locate the epicenter and also look at the stations that have been located like in Botswana and Zimbabwe or Mozambique, because that's where this has been felt as well. So you've got to look at this data and look at the epicenter and come up with an approximate location of the epicenter. Then one could say, okay, it is a tremor, and where it happens will also determine what happens in a geological perspective. So in this particular area, because I felt it like twice at like 12:20,
yes,
that to me, I mean, it's a huge thing, and it might have occurred, that's just my opinion, in the deep gold mines, and because the area that's characterized by these deep gold mines. So what might have happened is, it may be caused by blasting, it may be caused by the movement in the geological structures, which we call fault. Because what happens, we've got these major fault movements, and what happens as they move against each other, they create the stress field. So the stress increases and the energy is being built. So when the fault can't take any more the movements, then the energy is released. And that's what we feel wherever you're at. However, the movements and the amount of movement cannot determine whether it will be dangerous or not. It depends what moves and where. So if it's deep, because the stress is very high at deep levels, I will assume this probably below the mining levels, far below 3.9 kilometers, where they're actually mining in one of the deep gold mines in South Africa. So that could cause huge tremors. But I won't personally think it's an earthquake. I would think it's a tremor, but it's a huge one because the last time probably we had such a big tremor was in 2006 that occurred in Zimbabwe. So this will qualify as one of the most biggest tremors with a magnitude of 5.3 in Richter scale.
Doctor, we also had another tremor just last year, if I'm not mistaken, maybe in August. But this time a man was killed. Just how serious then was this tremor?
Also, a person getting killed wouldn't really make a tremor so huge. It just depends where the person is at that moment in time when the tremor happens. For example, let's say you're underground and there's a collapse of the ground. And if you're just there in that confined space, definitely you might not survive. If a huge one happens and you find that there aren't any people close to the location, and people may survive. So by looking at the magnitude and a number of people that have been killed doesn't automatically qualify it as the biggest. It just depends where the person was when the tremor happened and at what location. Also in terms of depth, we're talking about roughly 10 kilometers. Yes. That's very deep. The stress is very high. I mean, some call this place a devil's workplace because it's so hot and the pressure is high. So when you're working there, companies, I mean, mining companies, there are procedures that are being taken, I mean, to make sure that the support system is good and everything is fine.
All right.
So I would personally think it's a tremor because of our geological location in South Africa. We're not bounded by these major tectonic events in South Africa. We just experience a lot of tremors because of the deep gold mines.
Now, Doctor, with that being said, now, what else, what precautionary measures should people in such places actually take?
I mean, of course, people should be evacuated from their homes. And then, I mean, if you're close to an unstable areas, also, you should make sure that you stay well stable. And also, a lot of movement should be avoided, you know. And like, I mean, they are expecting this food. I mean, I'm just filling up for one of the colleagues because the chair for the whole seismology in South Africa is currently in Brazil, and there was no one available at VET. So there are a lot of procedures and precautions that should be taken for safety.
Absolutely.
Reasons, yeah.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for your clarification this afternoon.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, that was, of course, Dr. Musa Manzi, a geophysicist at Wits University, talking to us about a tremor that shook all southern parts of the African continent.